All right, we're going to go ahead and probably move the microphone. Man, I have a lot of stuff up here. We're going to go ahead and call to order the regular city council meeting for April 18th, 2022. Roll call, please.
Mayor Hasselbrink,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dovey,
Here.
Councilmember Bates.
Here.
Councilmember Turco,
Here.
Councilmember Nafolda.
Here.
Great. And if you could stand, we'll be doing the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, as we come to before you tonight, we just ask that you bless this meeting, bless our words, bless our decisions. We are just so honored and blessed to be living in a country where we can gather together, make decisions about how our government's run, how our city looks and responds. We're just so grateful for all the freedoms that you've given us. We ask that you bless all of our first responders, our military that are home and abroad, and keep them all safe and under your guided wing. We ask all this in your precious name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. If I could have council join me down below, we have a couple of presentations. Okay, our first presentation is for National Donate Life Month. Rachel Rodriguez, a One Legacy ambassador and donor grandmother, organ, tissue, marrow, and blood donation are life-giving acts recognized worldwide as expressions of compassion to those in need. California residents can sign up with Donate Life California Donor Registry when applying for or renewing their driver's license at the DMV. Residents interested in saving a life through living kidney donation are encouraged to visit www.livingdonationcalifornia.org for more information. And in recognition of National Donate Life Month, the month of April 2022 is hereby proclaimed DMV Donate Life Month in the city of Los Alamitos, and in doing so, we encourage all Californians to check yes when applying or renewing their driver's license or ID card, or by signing up on donatelifecalifornia.org. And Rachel, I'll have you come on up.
Thank you.
Give this to you, and I'll give you the mic.
Okay.
Do you need me to hold anything? Are you good?
Yeah, if you can hold this.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I'm honored to be here today. As she stated, I am a donor grandmother. This is my beautiful grandson. This was Malachi. Malachi was 16 months old when sadly and horrifically my grandson was a victim of homicide. My grandbaby was murdered by his mother's then boyfriend, and in the darkness of my son's grief, he chose to donate baby Malachi's organs. In doing so, baby Malachi went on to save the lives of 4 people. He saved the life of a 9-month-old with his liver, 2-year-old little girl received his heart, a 21-year-old received his right kidney, and a 65-year-old received his left kidney. The fact that a child, a 16-month-old child, could give to 2 adults is because the kidney is the only organ that actually grows to a recipient size. So in the darkness of my son's grief, for him to make a decision like that as young as he was, I believe it shows a lot of his character and who he is. I became an ambassador for Donate Life in honor of my grandson. The very last time that I held my grandson before he went into to save lives, I made a promise to him. And that promise was that I would continue to share his story of hope after tragedy in his honor. And so this today is another fulfillment of that promise that I made to him. My baby would have, this is my son, Daniel. Our baby would have been 12 years old a few weeks ago. And unfortunately, I was unable to throw him a party or take him to Disneyland or do all those things that we take for granted when celebrating a child's birthday. But what I can do is what I'm doing here today. And standing before you as a bereaved grandmother, I will always be a bereaved grandmother because, I miss my baby and the tears still flow. But I continue to do what I do to honor my baby. The person that was responsible for taking his life was held accountable 2.5 years later, and he is now serving a sentence of 25 to life. At least he's being held accountable, because there's so many families like mine that never see any form of justice. So today, the 2-year-old little girl is now 13. She's a teenager. And she is training for a marathon. And she just did a 20-plus mile run in her training for this marathon. So that could not have been possible had it not been for that life-saving transplant. The 21-year-old is now in her 30s. She's able to travel and make new memories with her family. So, we're grateful. We know both of those families. And it's a huge part of our healing process as a grieving family. But I just thank you. Thank you to the City of Los Alamitos for coming alongside us and help bring awareness to your city. Thank you. Thank you.
And for our next presentation, I'd like to invite Chief Claiborne up. He's going to introduce one of our police officers.
Alrighty, it is my absolute honor to be able to introduce one of the newest members to our force, which would be Officer Daniel Kim. He is recently off training and now out on patrol on his own in the city of Los Alamitos, and I don't want to steal his thunder. I'm going to allow him to come up here and introduce himself and tell you a little bit about him.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you for that presentation before me. It was a very touching story, and just absolutely beautiful that that's what you guys were able to do, and I'm glad that we were able to bring recognition to that. I have my 1-year-old here, so it hits a little different, right? Absolutely. My name is Daniel Kim. I'm just happy to be here. Happy to be working in law enforcement and serving this community. Prior to this, I worked for LAPD for 2 years, and then I moved over to Upland PD in San Bernardino County for 2 years, where I had the opportunity to work in a narcotics task force undercover. I know it's kind of hard to imagine this undercover selling drugs and buying drugs, but it was an interesting experience, and I'm glad I was able to bring all those experiences here with me to Los Alamitos. It's just such a wonderful city, completely different from what I had imagined it to be, and we hit the ground running. We're doing as best as we can. We're conducting investigations and making good arrests. I'm just glad to be impacting this community in a positive way and meeting the community members. I don't know how many stickers I've passed out. I was mentioning to the council members before, to all the kids who come up and they want to sit in the police car or take a picture, and it's night and day compared to where I was before. And again, I'm just so blessed to be able to participate and communicate or contribute to this city. I know my wife and my child are happy as well. Less time away and more time at home. We're closer to home, and we are working in a city that does back us and that does support us, especially the new chief, which is always a plus. More than that, like I said, I'm just happy to be here and happy to be serving all of you, and look forward to continuing to do so for many, many years.
Okay, at this time, we're at oral communications. Any individual in the audience may come forward to speak on any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Remarks are to be limited to not more than 5 minutes per speaker. Do we have any speakers? Oh, this is a shy group. Okay, let's bring back to council announcements. And Councilman Chirko, you're up.
Sure. So I attended the Coffee with the Cop at the Starbucks on Catella with Chief Claiborne and many others. It was a really nice event as usual. People were excited to be there and interacting with our officers. Attended the Los Alamitos Community Foundation meeting. I think that was last week, and we talked about some really good ideas for fundraising for the foundation. I see one of our directors is here. So it was a really good meeting, and we had presentations from different departments about proposed ideas for some fundraising and some events and some marketing and things like that. So that was great. Attended the Spring Festival along with the entire council on, when was that, Saturday? On Saturday, which was really nice. The Easter Bunny was also there, and staff and a lot of people. So as usual, Emmeline, your team did a great job. This is sort of a repeat. I say this every time you have an event, but and that's pretty much it. We had a special meeting last week we all attended where we approved the town center mixed use zone as well.
All right. Councilmember Nafolda.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback onto Councilman Chirko. Great job to the Parks and Rec Department. It was a great event. Family had a great time, and everybody who I saw was having a great time. So good job. Looking forward to these the Parklet series. So good job.
Councilmember Bates.
Sure. We won't comment on how hard it was to hold Mark back from going out there and grabbing all the Easter eggs from the kids. But other than that, it was good. No. I just wanted to comment that the last Regional Affairs Military Committee meeting, one of the things that was discussed, and I guess this is going to happen, I'm not quite sure when, but supposedly, for those of you who've been out on the base, you can see what it looks like. Supposedly, they've hired a landscaping group, which is going to turn parts of the base a little more green and a little better maintained. So we'll look forward to hopefully seeing that happen. This week for the library is a poetry celebration, actually month, and a full month. And if you go online to the library, you can participate in a lot of different programs that are available online. So just thought I'd mention that. I had the privilege of, with Sonia, of attending a ribbon cutting at the subway, the new, well, I wouldn't call it a new subway, but a rehabbed subway right on Los Al Boulevard. That was a nice ceremony. Just real quick on the sanitation district, let me, as you know, they're working on the main sewer line down Los Alamitos Boulevard and Catella. I'll just update the community. It is going well. It is on schedule. Watch for notices so you can understand when the street may be interrupted. They're going to try to coordinate it to make sure most of the work is done after hours and after school breaks for the summer. So hopefully that'll all stay on schedule. I had the privilege of representing the council at the first candlelight celebration of the Los Al Orchestra, high school orchestra, that was really really pretty amazing. Emmeline was there, and I think I was shocked at how impressive it was. It was almost like, hey, this is a college performance. It was done very well, and they had some special guests. All of it handled very well. Okay, I've said enough. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobie.
So I attended my regular Human Relations Committee meeting and my Mosquito and Vectors Board of Committee meetings, and a grand opening for a new assisted living facility over in Cypress. It's actually really nice, I don't know what their prices are, but comparatively, but it was really nice. I went to a school fundraiser, and I would just like to say, for anyone out there that's listening, if you have any tethering to any of the elementary schools, I'm not going to plug mine, but any of them, they are all looking to try to recoup any of their lost funds through fundraising. So if you've got even an extra few coins that you could give to one of our local schools, I know that they would greatly appreciate it. They do a lot with those funds. I got some custom donuts from the Donut Hut on Catella. And the owner, Sam, is such a sweetie pie. He's got like a little group of people, his little regulars, they come in all the time, and he can make any word, most shapes, whatever you'd like, and they still taste good. And the cupcakes from Catella Deli, I just have to throw that out there. I also attended Coffee with a Cop at the Starbucks at the Winter Circle. And it's always nice because people actually, well, I kind of bait them to come and to be our friends because I think we should drink up all of the coffee that's there. But people genuinely want to come over. They genuinely want to stop. They actually want to ask questions and be engaged, and that always makes my heart a little happy when I see it. I went to the CPRS banquet that honored and acknowledged the Parks and Rec staff in our district. Always a good time. I won a raffle basket again. Hey. And then I attended the ribbon cutting at Subway. It's a grand reopening with Ron and Sonia. So it was very nice. The owner there is also, he was very gracious and appreciative to have us out there. And let's see. I got to give an HSA award to a parent volunteer at one of our elementary schools. And I would just like to say how important it is to recognize people that give their time. Most anybody will do stuff if you pay them, but when people step up and do it just for what it does to their heart, there has to be some level of acknowledgement. And the lady was so appreciative of just words. I just want to throw that out there when we're going through and we're walking up on people that give to our city, give to our communities. A simple thank you goes so far. And then the last thing was the Spring Carnival. It was so much fun. Everybody is so happy to be outside. Yeah. It was so great. The lines were super long, but it was okay. It was very nice. And parks, y'all know how I feel about our Parks and Recs. They're the absolute best. That's it. Okay.
All right, so we'll go back to the Americana Awards, because I don't think we've met since then. Yeah, it's been a while. So we attended the Americana Awards, and we recognized Troy Edgar as our Citizen of the Year. Los Alamitos had 5 tables there, and they were voted the loudest fan section by the other mayors. And we earned every bit of that. The chief can do a roller coaster with a crowd, no problem. So it was all good. Attended the CPRS, which is the California Park and Recreation Society, the District 10 Awards Banquet, where we recognized Cottonwood Church for their partnership with the city with the senior grocery program. And then also Lee Elementary School for their partnership with the city to create a substitute event for the outdoor science camp since they weren't able to do that because of COVID. A couple weeks ago, Emlyn and I walked across the street to the American Legion Hall and presented them with the groundbreaking shovel for the Veteran Cemetery. It was on their Taco Tuesday. There were 60, 75 people there, very well received. And they were just so grateful for just that small gesture of a shovel on a wooden plaque and what it really meant. So that was great. We had our second La Salle Foundation meeting. We now have representatives for all 5 districts on the foundation, and then each department presented their wish list of things that they would like to get. So that gave us some direction on what kinds of fundraising, how much fundraising, but it's really a lot of fun. It's a good group of people. As everybody said, Spring Carnival was a huge success. It was very interesting watching the smallest, the 1 to 3-year-old Easter egg hunt, because realize they haven't done this in their life. We've been shut down for 2 years, so watching their body language and just the overwhelming who are all these people was really a lot of fun. But Park and Rec, they had every detail, the bounce houses, the live band, the Easter Bunny, just everything. It was really a lot of fun. And then after that, I went over to the Health and Resource Fair at the Community Congregational Church. I had the pleasure of consuming some pastor's pancakes that were made to order. And they do, the 3rd Saturday of every month, they offer a free meal to the community. They host it, and different churches come in and prepare the food. And so they've been doing this for a few years now, and they are continuing to do it. So it's just another church, nonprofit, just giving back to the community by using the resources that they have. And then finally, you know, it's always well known that our staff participates in all kinds of things throughout the city. And they call this their home, even if they don't physically live here. And our police chief is no exception. He coaches an F&L team, he stops by fundraisers at all the local restaurants, attends nonprofit fundraising events, and his latest community effort was Coffee with a Cop. And rumor has it he was working the drive-through. So I did a little digging, and I found some of his Yelp reviews. You ready for this? So Spike gave him 3 stars because he thought he was a little skimpy on the whipped cream for his puppuccino. Another customer gave him 5 stars for his $1 million smile as he presented a venti mocha, 3-pumps mocha, non-fat, steamed upside down, no whip. So it was a great effort by our chief. We definitely need to do it again. And so in honor of that, I would like to present him with his own name badge. Now, I tried to get an apron, but from what I understand, you need to do a couple more training sessions before you earn that apron. So I would like to hand this over to you. We might have to do a pinning ceremony for this, because it is quite a big deal. But seriously, we've strived to have a police chief that was integrated within our community, and you've just absolutely hit it out of the park. And we just thank you for, in the short time you're here, it seems like you've been here for 20 years, and we just appreciate all of your efforts that you do just to make La Salle great. And with that, items from the city manager.
Well, now I'm just a little upset that I don't get coffee in the morning from the chief, but I do want to ask Director Noda to talk about our next series of events, the Parklet series. Ron?
Evening, Mayor, members of City Council. It is this NOTA because you're used to the special event with the other NOTA, but this one here and our team here in Development Services, along with the rest of the city, we're planning this Parklet series, as you can see by the flyer in front of you. It's being held on Pine Street. It's 4 weeks starting actually this Thursday, so it's 4 consecutive Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So Thursday, we call it Party on Pine, a live concert. The 21st of April, we're gonna kick it off with a great local band called Night Rider. Then on Fridays, we do a Friday night movie flick so this Friday, April 22nd with Peter Rabbit and The Runaway. And then every Saturday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., there's a certified farmers market and vendor fair. So why are we doing the Parklet series? It's, as you recall from last week, Councilmember Churko alluded to it, the council approved the town center mixed use and the downtown area. And so Pine Street is kind of like the city's main street. And so again, I mentioned it last week, I'll mention it again. We're trying to this theory called tactical urbanization, where we're trying to embed in the people's mind of our town center in Los Alamitos, and to please come out and shop and dine on Pine Street, and the surrounding businesses are over there. So again, go visit the website. We have all the bands, we have all the movies laid out. Again, it starts this Thursday, April 21st, for 4 consecutive weeks, ending on May 14th. And we invite the public to come out and enjoy the many bands and the movies and the farmers market. And so, again, we invite the public. So please mark it on your calendar. And we invite council out there. And, we have city staff going out there as well. And so, I think it'll be a fun, great time to promote the city, promote economic development, and promote the togetherness. Thank you.
Anything from you? All right. So now we'll go ahead and move on to warrants. Any questions?
Please.
Councilmember Bates.
Yes, let's start on page 2 if we can. It just kind of jumped out at me, the one there where we're talking about about in the middle of the page, it's only $100, but I was just wondering how are we involved with Wendy's?
Yes, sir. That's actually a reimbursement payment for the Los Al bucks to that establishment.
Oh, okay, thank you. So we just needed to clarify that.
Yes,
of the warrant
exactly.
register. Thank you. Okay. Can you tell me, usually self-insurance, this is on page 3, self-insurance, we're, basically insuring ourselves, so we're not having to pay out anything. In the middle of that page, the $1,125, is that for some type of an administrative fee for self-insurance?
You're absolutely right, sir. It's actually a payment to our workers' comp administrator, so we handle a third party handles those for us.
Okay, so that's for self-insurance, even though it's not all self-insurance?
Exactly.
Got it. On page 5 at the bottom, again, probably just what we're putting in the narrative here. Most people see restroom doors and they don't think of $5,000 restroom doors. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Of course, sir. And also, this is one that I have to hand to the development services team. They've done some analysis as to the amount of time that it spends and the cost that's associated with going and opening up the restrooms, shutting down the restrooms each day. Remember, this is a restroom that operates 7 days a week, and so by placing doors that actually can be set to close automatically, it saves all of that staff time of going out there, and that the ROI or the return on investment for this is a little more than 6 months. So it actually is a mechanism that by replacing these doors, they will actually self-lock themselves and self-open them themselves.
Is the camera working out there? So if there is some kind of a vandalism problem, we can follow up and have some good information to work with the PD to follow up?
Yes, and we're actually going through the process right now of looking at different camera locations throughout the city and places where we might need to add more.
Got it. On page 8 there, toward the bottom, we're paying, it looks like the Orange County tax collector treasurer, is this some type of a reimbursement for?
Yes, sir. It's actually, that's our portion of the Orange County Sheriff's Tech Division, the 800 megahertz for our
Okay.
radios.
Okay.
And then also there's the automated fingerprint reader system that we also deploy.
Got it. Last question, Mayor. On page 11, could you talk a little bit about the asset forfeiture there and what that's all about for the $6,000?
Of course, sir. So as you know, asset forfeiture is when our police are involved in a situation where certain property or asset is held, and we obviously recoup some of those funds. This is actually a payment back to the district attorney's office for such assets that were actually released due to court order. So it was essentially assets that were going back to the individuals after the fact.
Mayor, I misstated. On page 16, could you just tell us, are there 2 payments involved? Because I noticed there was an earlier payment for that guardrail, and this payment's like for $10,000, and there was an earlier payment. So why the 2 payments? Why not one? And how was this guardrail handled? Because I know we had some challenges with it.
Right. And I'll ask Director Noda if I miss anything to step in as well, is that obviously this was a pretty involved project. I don't think anyone had any inkling from the onset that a guardrail on a freeway actually had this level of engineering involved in it. This also extended out to the different steel that was used, how it's actually engineered, how it's produced, and how it's actually installed. And so a situation like this requires an additional level of inspections, not to mention an extra level of design. And so that is the reason for the additional billing there. And yes, I agree with you that 10 grand is a lot of money for inspection work, but at the same time, they're required to follow Caltrans regs, and so that's why the amount is that high.
Are we going to recover most of that?
I believe that we have actually recovered the vast majority of what we can recover, but I think that we're still trying to see if there's anything left that we can go after at this point.
Can I add, sir, that, not only is it specialized steel, but it's specialized concrete. We had a hard time locating concrete because it was on a bridge. But the amount that you see there is not only the extra inspectors and the extra design, but because it involves street closures as well, we had to bring in our traffic engineer to make sure that our street closures was correct and that the fence or the area where we were being worked on was fortified in a proper manner.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You're good? Any other questions? All right, can I get a motion in a second, please?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Okay, and roll call vote, please.
Mayor Hasselbrink,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Doby,
Yes.
Councilmember Bates,
Aye.
Councilmember Turco,
Aye.
Councilmember Nafolda.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Now on to the consent calendar. All consent calendar items may be acted upon by one motion unless the council member requests separate action on a specific item. Would anybody like to pull an item?
F and G, please, Mayor.
G. Okay, anybody else? All right, can I get, are they just questions?
Most of it, I think, are just questions. Yes.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and do that, and then we'll pass them all
Okay.
together.
So could we get a little more information on F regarding the project? And do we have any kind of prioritization? Because I'm concerned that we might not be able to recover all our costs on this project. And are there certain storm drains that have been reviewed where maybe the need for the screens immediately isn't really there? And that maybe we don't have to spend this kind of money at this point in time. So that's kind of my question, is to get a better understanding of where the screens are needed, are they needed now? And obviously, the cost is substantial.
And maybe if I can take that last part first, sir, if that's
Sure.
okay. So obviously, the original bids, we did not account for a significant increase that we're seeing right now in the cost of materials. I think we've all experienced it, from the gas pump to buying food to, in this case, buying steel and specialty items that actually have to be put on these storm drains in order for them to work the way that OCTA requires them to work in order for us to get these grants. That is what I think you're referring to, is the $35,000 out of Measure M that we would be putting towards this project as well. The goal of the project is to ensure that we are hitting all of our catch basins over time. And so with that, I'm going to ask Director Noda if he has more insight as to if there are different screens that need it more than another, or if this is...
Or could we apply for a second grant, do part of them now that's covered by the grant, and then apply for another grant to do the balance of them, so we don't have to use the Measure M money?
So I'm going to take that, and the first step is if we need to do it. So we do need to do the grant, the installation of the catch screen. It is an NPDES mandate from the state of California and the water district there that we have to do this. So the city has about 122 catch basins. So, we went in there, doing a bid for the RFP. If I remember correctly in the staff report, 3 companies submitted bid. This one, of course, was the lowest one at $92,000 approximately, but I believe the second and third one was probably in the range of $170,000. So there was a big difference in price. So of course, I did some homework and said, why are you so much less? What's going on? And basically, we're in a fortunate situation because this particular company has a ton of steel that they bought before COVID, and so that's why they have it in their warehouse. And so that's why they were able to do this. So knowing that fact, the second part there is we had to do a decision because yes, sir, we could apply for a grant next year, but with the grant process and being a competitive bid grant process, we're not quite sure if we're able to get all the money. And secondly, we might miss out on a chance of getting a very, very competitive price. So that's why we decided to get the money out of Measure M, because let's say we only did half of the 122, approximately 60, and we're going to do the next 60 left, we might be stuck with a very large bill because we missed out on this opportunity with this particular vendor.
Thank you.
That's on- And then on G?
G.
Okay.
On G, really, I think that it's great that we're moving ahead with this. I wonder if you could share with us a little bit on what we're doing to try to get street trees, when they're taken out, replanted as quickly as possible. Because I've just had some recent experience with that, and I will say they did get done. but we sat there for a good 2 months on some of these without new trees being planted. So I guess in our tree program and trying to have an urban forest here in the city, what are we doing in terms of when we remove trees, trying to get them planted quickly?
Right, and again, I'll ask Director Noda to step in if I miss something, but one of the things that is time-consuming, I guess is the best term for it, is having a decision made about what kind of tree will be put in after we've removed a tree. And so we've adopted a policy at the director's recommendation that prior to removing trees, we will know what tree you want to have put back in, and therefore cut down on the timeline to have it actually replaced. And that's, I think, just fair to the neighborhood. They don't need to see our trucks out there every single day when one day will do.
Got it. Thank you. I'm good.
Anything else? Anybody else? Okay, can I get a motion?
I'll move.
Second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And I did want to highlight on item H on the consent calendar, we appointed our newest member of the Parks, Recs, and Cultural Arts Commission, and she's actually in the back there, Janet Gallagher, and we've recruited her husband because we do family things, and he is on our foundation commission. So thank you very much. They are residents over at Royal Oak, just next door, and they're going to be adding some wisdom to all of our parks and recs and foundations. So thank you very much for your service. All right, and next we'll go on to the first public hearing for the fiscal year 2023 master fee schedule update. And I believe that's Director Craig Kohler from Finance.
Yes, just before we start, I did want to make one or two comments. Back in 2015, the council adopted a policy of looking at the CPI increases that happen each year and then applying them to the fees that we actually charge here for city services. It's important to remember that these are elective services. It's if a developer were to come in and want to build a building, if a property owner wanted to come in and change their signage, these are all things that are self-initiated by those people. And so therefore, there's a fee established to it so that the funds that we receive through property tax and through sales tax don't go to fund these elective decisions that property owners have made in the future. One of the things that I think is incredibly well thought out is the idea that this comes back to the council every single year so that there isn't a gap of 5 or 6 years that go by before we actually take a look and address these fees. Now, this year, obviously, there's a very large CPI increase, but again, I think the policy itself is very sound. With that, I'll turn it over to Craig.
Thank you, Jet. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. The object of this is to keep the cost recovery in sync or in parity with the services that are being rendered. It's recommended that City Council approve the proposed master fee schedule update, which includes the proposed fee increase commensurate with increases in the Consumer Price Index, and this is for the 12 months ending February 2022. This is also according to the best practices established by the Government Finance Officers Association and the National Advisory Council on State and Local Budgeting, stating that government should calculate the full cost of recovery of different services that they provide and should review and update charges and fees periodically based on the factors such as impact on inflation, other cost increases, adequacy of cost recovery, use of services, and the competitiveness of current rates. As City Manager referenced that back in 2015, there was a study that was conducted by NBS to look at the user fees. That was approved by Council and adopted in 2018. And with that, we apply the CPI adjustment every year. Staff would like to bring this back forward, a recommendation to conduct a new cost recovery user fee and charges allocation study that would be in conjunction with this next year's budget, and we'll conduct an RFP to engage independent consultants to perform a thorough analysis of the total cost of providing services, including applicable direct and indirect costs associated with specific services. So before you tonight is the recommendation to conduct a public hearing in connection with the fiscal year 22-23 master fee schedule update.
Great, thank you. And with this being a public hearing, I'll open it up for any public comment. Shy group still. So I will go ahead and bring it back to council for any questions, comments, clarifications.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mayor and council members, While I appreciate that the consumer price index is very high right now, you know, probably running at 8.5%, we're suggesting a 7.4% increase. I guess to me, that's a little high, especially when we haven't reviewed all our rates recently. So I guess my thinking would be to maybe not make it that full cost recovery right now, pick a lower level, maybe around 5%, implement that now, wait until we do our full cost recovery system, and then see where the rates are and potentially could adjust them at that time. But I think just jumping this full 7.4%, even though the CPI may justify that, is a little bit too much of a step for us to take right now. So that's my thinking, Mayor, and I thought I'd just share that with the council.
And can we get some clarification? Is that all of our rates going up the full 7.4% for the fees?
No, it's not across the board. It's just certain fees that are applicable to the CPI adjustment.
Okay. Any other questions,
I guess,
comments?
yeah, I guess the question is, you know, if we don't do the full CPI increase now, do we fall behind in cost recovery going forward? Can we make up that difference next year, for example? My concern would be that, you know, stuff like development going on in the city, big developers putting in a big project, we're not charging them the full cost recovery amount, then that's getting spread to all our residents as opposed to the party that's causing the resources to be used. So that's one question. But I totally hear your sentiment and agree, you know, to the extent we can avoid passing on our residents and our businesses are getting CPI increases everywhere right now, right? So
the short answer, sir, is that yes, we can come back and reorder the fees after we do the study. And it's important to note for everyone that we've changed the internal structure of the city significantly in the last 2 years. And so most of these fees are based on a calculation of the amount of time that staff spends on each one of these tasks and the materials that go into that. Whereas in some cities, you might have 1 or 2 planners that look at a project before it's approved. Here, you have a planner who's going to look at it. You have a manager who might look at it. You have Director Noda, who definitely is going to look at it. So you have all of these different hands that are going to touch something before it gets approved, and that's what goes into building the fee. While we won't be able to go back and recoup what we potentially would have lost during this period of time, we can reset that fee in the future based on this new calculation. So that would be the process. And in talking to the finance director, we believe that we'll probably be ready within 6 months to come back with a completely thought-out fee system for the council's consideration.
Councilmember Bates, what were you thinking? 4 or 5%, something like that?
I
Or
was thinking 5 if the rest of the council would be amenable to that. That might make sense now, given that it's 7.4 recommendation. We go with 5 now, see what the adjustment, maybe there'll be some that we can drop at that point, some that we may have to raise based on the findings of the study.
And just one note, if the council does wish to make a change to the amount of increase, we'll have to take this item back, rework our fee schedule, and then bring it back to you just to make sure that we have the correct numbers in the right places.
Great.
Right, okay. So do I have a motion for that?
Sure. I'll move that you rework the numbers, bring it back to us at the next meeting for further consideration.
I'll second.
At 5%.
At 5%?
Yes.
Jordan got this one. but-
Yeah.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, if we may also continue the public hearing to that meeting total.
Yes. So that's part of the 5% and continue the public hearing to the next meeting. Okay? Do we need to do a roll call vote or?
No.
No, okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Our next piece of ordinance is ordinance number 2022-02, permitting the keeping of female chickens in residential zones. You just never know what you're going to hit here. All right.
I'm going to hand this one over to our poultry czar, Mr. Noda.
Yeah, there used to be a Farmer John, now it's a Farmer Ron. All right, good evening. During its February 23rd, 2022 meeting, the Planning Commission discussed whether it was appropriate to permit the keeping of live fowl, or as we call chickens, as pets in the city of Los Alamitos. Currently, right now, our municipal code for bids the keeping of live chickens in the city. And so we went, the Planning Commission, again, led by the planning team here, discussed the possibility of keeping it and the rules. We presented them many rules and regulations as examples from different cities. I believe the city that they liked the rules from the most was from the city of Sacramento. And so we tailored that to that. So I'm not gonna go over every rule that we proposed that they approved or recommended for approval of the Planning Commission at its March 23rd meeting. But so chickens, there's a difference. There's a female chicken, which are called hens, and then there are male chickens, which are called roosters. So male chickens or roosters are prohibited and may not be kept on any residential parcel in the city. They recommended that a maximum of 4 female chickens or hens may be kept. All hens must be confined in a pen, coop, cage, run, or other enclosure at all time. And there's a minimum area of 3 square feet per hen. All hen chickens shall be provided with, of course, adequate food, water, and ventilation. The pens, coops, cages, or runs must be kept in a clean and sanitary condition. Chicken feed must be stored properly in a container that prevents spillage and to, of course, prevent access to other animals and rodents. And this is a big one here. All hens, chickens must be kept within an enclosure that is at least 20 feet distance from any dwelling units on adjacent parcel. So I want to make that very clear. It's 20 feet from a dwelling unit, not 20 feet from the property line. It's got to be from the dwelling units. And of course, no hens or chicken may be kept in the front yard at all times. So again, I want to go back even further that this discussion was brought up because our Code Enforcement Division was issued was notified about the code violation for this particular resident. Went out there and issued a notice of violation. The resident reached out to the planning team and said, how do we go about this to keep chickens? And so we documented the steps. They followed the steps. We went again through Planning Commission. We did the notices out to the public about that. And again, after a couple meeting dates with the Planning Commission, they recommended approval with some of the items that I discussed previously, the rules that we just stated. So again, this is a first introduction of the reading. If council chooses to move forward with this changing of the municipal code, and that concludes my report. I'm here along with our associate planner, Tom Oliver's here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Farmer Ron. Being a public hearing again, we'll open this up for public comment. Any farmers out there? Okay. I'll bring it back to the council for any comments, questions, or clarifications.
A question. I'm just wondering, Ron, if you could help us. Obviously, most of our residential properties have a 5-foot setback requirement. And I'm wondering, with these cages into that, does the setback requirement apply? Because if it does, it seems to me that it's going to be very difficult to locate these cages on many properties if you require that 20-foot separation and you've got a 5-foot setback from the property line. So I'm just curious if you'd given that any thought and how it works.
I want Tom to jump in, but I believe, sir, that most of the coops that we're referring to will have to be in the backyard. It can't be placed in any of the setback area. So we talked about this at the Planning Commission, and I'm understanding your question is, they talked about multi-density, residential units like apartments, and so they said that, again, could they put it in a little area, again, which is most likely the setback area, and again, they have to meet the other standards where they keep a certain amount of chickens. They have to have a certain amount of square feet and all that stuff. And yes, you can't put it in the setback because there's codes in terms of if there's an emergency and all that for a fire escape or any type of other emergencies. But I believe, again, it falls under the backyard. Anything else?
Yes, council members. The 20 feet is really going to be the setback for the cages, really. The 5-foot setback wouldn't even fall within that, I mean, would fall within that 20 feet, so this is a little bit farther. And yes, there are a lot of properties in the town that this will not work for.
Right.
They will need to be bigger properties in order to handle that distance, so, yeah.
Okay, so what I'm getting at is, I can remember back in the dark ages where, like from back property lines, where you have two single-family homes abutting each other, you still had certain setback requirements to meet. And so I'm just trying to get an understanding, do we have 5 feet, the chicken coop, and then 20 feet from the house? Is that, because I'm just thinking, if that's the case, or if the chicken coop can be up against that back fence, then the chances are better that, you know, you're able to really locate the chickens on the property. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Well, your rear yard setbacks are 10 feet.
Right.
So that would mean there's 10 feet from the, 10 feet each parcel has to have open. And then most houses actually are not 10 feet from the property line. They're actually a little bit more. So this 20 feet from the other house's residence is actually a good distance for that. It works.
Okay.
You know, this could be in the setback, the rear setback, if the house is more than 20 feet away from that coop. So, yeah.
Okay.
It could be in the rear setback. The side setback, not so much. Yeah.
I was just going to note, sir, that I think it's what I think everyone's going to get hung up on is that it's actually 20 feet from the dwelling unit as opposed to the property line. So obviously there's a lot of different calculations that are going into account there. But like Tom said, I think that the 10 feet that you would gain on your neighbor's side of the property, then the 10 feet that you would gain on your side of the property, you could essentially have a coop right up against your house if it's more than 10 feet from your property. So,
House.
which I'm not sure how many people want to have a chicken coop directly adjacent to their house, but
So there isn't a 20-foot setback required from the house itself?
It doesn't have to do
From
with
the house.
your own house. It has to do with your neighbor's house. You can't have your chicken coop within 20 feet of your neighbor's
Yes,
house.
exactly.
Regardless of setbacks or anything else, is my understanding, right? You got to figure out where your neighbor's house is. You can't put your chicken coop within 20 feet of your neighbor's house, their outside wall.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
So I watched the Planning Commission meeting on this. I think the Planning Commission, as usual, did a really good job evaluating this, considering all the pros and cons. Many cities do allow this. I think it's good to give residents the chance to do this, to have this opportunity. I personally had chickens growing up, and I thought it was great to learn how to take care of them. A little bit different from a dog or a cat. They give you some food, which is unique, a unique type of pet to have that'll give you some eggs. I have family members now in other cities that have chickens, and they'll bring over fresh eggs. So I think the restrictions on it are reasonable, sufficient setback, no roosters, number of hens is all good, and just a few more comments. I'm probably going to regret this, but I did want to thank the resident in the Highlands who brought this to the Planning Commission. She did a great job egging them on to consider this.
Oh, no.
Planning Commission went through it. They discussed it in great detail. They showed a lot of hindrance.
Stop it.
They really evaluated it. Their talk was not cheap.
Doug, can we cut his mic, please? Turn his mic off, please.
I think being able to have animals in the city that will give you food, it's really exciting. And it makes good economic sense. I don't think a lot of people are going to take this up. Some people will realize it's not all it's cracked up to be. Anyway, with that, I'll move to approve.
Yeah. The chief's bringing out the bracelets. Keep it up.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Will you stop talking, please? A second. All right.
Now we got ducks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is.
Oh, I'm
so if I
sorry.
could read it in.
He messed me up.
The chicken man.
Okay, before the city council for consideration this evening is ordinance number 2022-02, entitled, "An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Los Alamitos, California, amending sections 17.08.020, 6.20.010, and subsection 24 of section 8.32.020 of the Los Alamitos Municipal Code, and adding new section 6.20.180 to the Los Alamitos Code concerning the keeping of female chickens in residential zones."
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I nominate Mark Churko to be at the ribbon cutting for the chicken coop.
Sounds good.
Moving forward, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Please let Old McDonald know he's ready to go. And now we're on to closed session. City Attorney, can you move us into closed
Thank you,
session?
Mayor. The city council will now adjourn into closed session to discuss items 12A and B as listed on this evening's agenda.
Great, thank you very much. When I
He got
All set? Great, thank you. The city council has returned from closed session with no reportable actions taken.
Thank you.
what trip?
Enjoy your chicken coop.